Hello everybody, my name's Ben and I'm proud to introduce to you our latest range of bows, the Mybo Revolution. Now ordinarily in a video like this, I'd probably like to sit here and talk in great detail about every feature and every component. But the reality is there is so much to discuss that I can't possibly fit it all in one video. And as I tend to get a bit carried away anyway, this video could quite easily end up being a 2-hour feature film if we're not careful. So what I've decided to do is to create a series of individual videos where we can focus on every component and every element in great detail. We can discuss the design decisions behind those components and features. And the reason why I feel that's important is because I don't want to just sit here and say, this is the greatest bow we've ever made. I want to prove it to you. So for this video, we'll focus on the new technology, the features and specifications, and we'll give you a good background and a good understanding of what it is that makes this Revolution such a good bow. Let's take a look at the specifications. We'll be producing 3 different bows. The Revolution 40, which is a 40-inch axle to axle length, the Revolution 37, and we're also producing a Revolution 34. That's not quite ready yet, that's still in development, but will be available later this year. So we'll be focusing on the Revolution 40 and 37. The Revolution 40 has a 40-inch axle to axle length, 5 pounds mass weight, straight riser design, brace height 7.5 inches, speed 310 to 315 feet per second, draw length range 25 to 32.5 inches spread across 3 cam sizes with 1/4 inch micro adjustable draw length increments and a let off of 55 to 80%. The Revolution 37 will be a 37-inch axle to axle length, 4.8 pounds mass weight with a 1/2 inch reflex riser geometry, 7-inch brace height, speed 320 to 325 feet per second, and a draw length range of 23 3/4 to 31 1/4, again spread across 3 sizes of cams with 1/4 inch incremental adjustment, let off 55 to 80%. The maximum draw weights will be available in 5 pound increments. The Revolution 37 starting at 35 pounds all the way through to 70 pounds. The Revolution 40 will be starting at 35 all the way through to 65 pounds. Let's take a closer look at the riser. The riser is machined from a solid billet of 6082 aluminium. Features a double riser cage, 2 rear mounted stabilizer hold positions and 1 front mounted. All 3 stainless steel threaded inserts, so they're not going to wear out. You'll notice there is what looks like a random threaded hole below the grip. It's actually a 1/4 UNC, which means it's a common size for most stabilizer weights, and it allows you to add mass weight quickly and easily directly onto the riser. We have a new grip profile. This grip profile will be consistent across all 3 of the bow models. It's quite difficult to create a grip, and that was one of the challenges we wanted to overcome. We wanted to create a grip that would be comfortable no matter whether you had small hands or large hands. Because historically, if you was a small archer with a small hand, you'd be expected to shoot a shorter axle length bow. But it's not the case. Plenty of smaller archers want to shoot longer axle length bows, and they've often had to put up with grips that are too big. So what we've done, we have reduced this dimension here. So even if you have a small hand, the grip will still feel slim and comfortable. On the underside of the shelf here, we have sculptured and contoured the area where your knuckles would naturally want to contact the bow. Because if you have big hands or quite protruding knuckles, you can get a callus as it rubs and interferes with the riser. So we've cut this away so there's plenty of clearance there, and we've also swept up the front edge of the riser so the tip of your thumb should not rest on any of the sharp edges or corners or square corners of a bow. One of the decisions we had to make was whether or not to include a full shelf on the bow. Irrespective of hand size, archers hold the bows differently, and it became clear there was no consensus over which was better. So what we decided to do was make a detachable shelf plate. So if you are of the preference of having a full shelf, you'll be able to do so. Or if you don't like the shelf, simply remove it and fit a blanking plate, and that'll give the freedom for your fingers to roll up and around. The riser is available in 9 different colours. It's matte anodised, has a fine texture to it, feels great to the touch, and I think it looks fantastic. Let's have a look at some of the other new features on the bow. We've got a new pocket system and a new lateral adjustment system. This is a great feature. I'm really happy with this one. You can adjust the horizontal placement of your limb tips now by turning the Allen key, and we have a drive mechanism that goes through the centre of the riser. You don't have to undo one side and tighten it up the other. That's not how it works. It's just a direct drive. It's a stiff tension. There's no way that that can vibrate by itself. And you can shift the limb tips horizontally, and by shifting the limb tips horizontally, you are in effect shifting the string horizontally and changing the thrust plane of the bowstring. Reason that's of good value is because there's a lot of things that can impart horizontal torque on a bow. The obvious one being your hand grip. Maybe at full draw your bow is always pointing to the right and you wanted to square that up. You can square your stabilizer up at full draw by adjusting these this lateral limb aligner. If you have rear mounted stabilizer weights that are offset considerably on one side, that can also have negative effects to the tuning and the arrow flight. So having this lateral limb adjuster is a really valuable tuning aid to clean up some of those horizontal issues that you might get when setting a bow up. Another thing of note is we have a brand new limb pocket system. It's now independent from the rockers. It has locking clamps on both sides, so they can be locked down securely. Also helps reduce vibration a little bit when they're locked down. Poundage adjustment is 15% from its maximum wound up position. We've limited the poundage adjustment a little bit to 15%, so it doesn't quite equate to 10 pounds. The reason I wanted to do that is because if you have a bow with a wide range of draw weight adjustments, say 10, 12, 15 pounds, you're just taking tension off the limbs. By limiting it to 15%, I'm confident that at any draw weight position within that 15%, the bow will feel really good, and I know that the limbs are working where I want them to be working. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about limb angle, because limb angle does have a direct influence on how a bow feels. The more vertical a limb angle, the more dynamic and responsive the bow feels. But there can be a downside. There can be more shock and more vibration. If you have a horizontal limb bow, the shock and vibration is reduced. The bow becomes quite passive, and it can also feel very dead in the hand. My preference is to have a bow that does have some positive feel when you shoot it. You need some responsiveness in a bow. So what we've done, we have the vertical limb style, but with a more laid back limb tip. So as it approaches full draw, you'll see the limb tips are virtually horizontal, and then when you shoot it, they finish in a slightly forward position. And what I found is that gives the perfect balance between having a nice, responsive, positive feel with a bow, but without those negative vibrations and the shock that can be accustomed to a particularly vertical limb bow. We're using a 4-track twin cam system with an integral yoke. The yoke does spread the forces quite nicely across the axles and limb tips, minimising any cam lean, and also has the advantage of being mounted below the cam. It minimises the angle required to get fletching clearance at the cable guard. So a nice side effect is the tension on the cable is reduced, and therefore the torque associated with cables is also slightly reduced. When it comes to draw length adjustment, there can be a compromise depending on what draw length mechanism system we choose to use. There are fundamentally two different methods to change draw lengths on cams. There is the fixed module system, whereby you remove one module and you place it with a completely different module to change the draw length. The advantage of that system is that the bow designer can make small adjustments to each individual component to ensure that the cam feels good across the entire draw length range. The downside of that is you need loads of modules, it can be expensive, and it's quite hard to make small adjustments. The other draw length system for changing draw length is the rotating module. The advantage of that is it's very convenient and easy to change your draw length. But the downside is that it is a bit of a compromise across the draw length range. So for example, what I mean is that if you had a cam with a wider draw length range on a rotating module, and you set that cam in the short setting and then you set it in the long setting, that cam feels quite considerably different. The force draw curve can change, the way it breaks down into the let-off can change, and the stop tension can change. So it's convenient, but it is a compromise. So what we decided to do was use the best of both worlds. We have a rotating module, but with a limited degree of motion. And that ensures that that module never goes out of the specification that I'm happy with, and it feels consistent across that draw length portion. When we get to the end of that rotation, we remove that module and we fit a new module which has had some corrections made to it that allows that to continue to rotate for the remainder of the draw length while still feeling consistent across the whole range. The advantage of this is we have the convenience of small incremental adjustments, and in this case it's in 1/4 inch increments we've achieved, but it never goes out of specification, so it feels good in all of the settings. We're offering 3 cam sizes. The 2 smaller cam sizes use 2 modules to cover the full range of draw length, and both of those modules are included in the bow. The bigger cam has an extra 3rd module that's not included in the cam, but that one has been designed for those extra long draw length archers. The module has a very small amount of adjustment, but it ensures that even if you're using a large cam in the longest setting, it still feels great. We will do an exchange for people on modules who require that one, or it can be purchased separately. Let-off is controlled by this new sliding stop. It can be adjusted between 55 and 80% let-off. Each position changes the let-off by approximately 5%, and it does make a small change to the draw length of approximately 1/8 of an inch per setting. I mentioned earlier that we're producing the cam in 3 different sizes. This isn't just a case of maximising the draw length spread. We wanted to maintain some overlap between the sizes and also ensure that for each given range it's working within an appropriate cam size. If you've ever found yourself in a position where you're unsure of your draw length and you're having to choose between either the short setting of one cam size or the long setting of another cam size, you don't need to worry about that anymore. This overlap should ensure that you'll be able to pick a cam size that suits your range nicely. Other features of note, we have the SVL limb dampers included as standard. We're including an AAE slippery slide. The cable guard is a rigid carbon bar adjustable for fletching clearance. We have an adjustable string suppressor. Strings and cables are made with BCY X99 material, manufactured by Rainbow Strings in the UK. These are top-end strings and cables, I think something like 50 world and European records. So there's absolutely no reason to start swapping out any of these accessories on the bow. You've already got top quality accessories included. I hope I've been able to show you what these bows are all about. It's been a lot of work for us, 12 months of design, prototyping, tweaking, re-prototyping, but the effort has paid off. It's probably the best thing to come out of 2020. So try one now and join the Mybo Revolution. Thanks for listening.